some of your feedback on our SMS line 22155. Suman Damwe says the sugar problem is not about land issues. It is about both technical and operational efficiencies. We have focused on production rather than productivity, and this is where we lost it. Imports is a secondary exogenous variable. Keep your comments coming in as we discuss this sugar deal between Kenya and Uganda, and whether, as Anzetsa says, Uganda should even be part of this conversation. We'll get back to that in a minute, but of course this focuses on where we are as a region. And Anzetsa, I'll start with you in terms of opening up our markets within the East African region for free movement of goods and labor. This of course points a little bit to that. Where do you think we are with that?
I think, well, if you're looking at Uganda specifically, they have a trade deficit with us. So if you look at the balance of trade between Kenya and Uganda, we definitely export a lot more than we import from them. But I think the concern that I'm having with this conversation is that it's creating tension between Kenya and Uganda in an unnecessary manner. There's already been tension around the SGR between Kenya and Uganda, and for us to make this a political issue that adds even more fuel to the fire, rather than looking at it as the purely economic issue that it should be, which is why is our sugar uncompetitive. And in fact, the real question for me, if I was a Ugandan, would be, well, we got into the EAC because we wanted to leverage economies of scale. The same way Kenya wanted, us to open their markets for their goods and services so that we could make more money. It's the same way Uganda wanted Kenya to open up our market so that we could get our products and services in there as well. So why do we suddenly start having double speak in a deal that could be even good for the poorest consumers who could possibly have more affordable sugar? But more importantly, why is it that we want it to be a one-way street when it comes to certain issues? So yeah, that's what I have to say about that.
Moremi, where does this leave us with East African communities integration?
I think in terms of the country, the choice of the trade policy that we want to pursue is now known. And I think the part that our current president is basically implementing is a continuity of what the coalition government indirectly over-discussed. The idea of strengthening the community, strengthening COMESA, and trying to position Kenya to take full advantage with the whole population that is available for us. So as a policy, we need to be clear that we are going for opportunity selection. And I think what we then need to do is to reposition our population in terms of availing opportunity information to them. What is this trade information that they need to exploit so that as they grow, they also grow in the way the country is growing. And the country is growing on a regional integration policy. That's the path we have chosen. So regional integration is our way to go. For us to grow the country, we need to know what is competitive elsewhere. I would want us to be very radical in the way that Uganda, and if we use the word Western, is one zone. So me as a farmer in Western can actually do farming in Uganda. And that person I'm calling exporting can be myself. So that we don't have to permanently relook our brains and lock them in only one location. Because that's how economies grow. So if you look at Coca-Cola, we drink it in Kenya, but the owner is sitting in Atlanta on the other side. So the country called Kenya, the people we are calling good, should be made good in everything, including exploiting those opportunities in other markets.
All right. Does this sugar deal matter? Deal or no deal? Is this the crux of the matter?
I think it matters because it's going to force us to be a bit more self-reflective, and I would encourage people to first of all do some reading on the subject. Don't just take what politicians say on TV, etc. There is information online. East African has written about it, The Standard has written about it, The Daily Nation, Business Daily, even international newspapers. So what I would say is, can we get the politicians to stop looking at this as a Uganda issue and start scrutinizing them on the internal dynamics that I've mentioned, that he has mentioned, so that we can move this conversation in the right direction instead of, sidelining and giving distracting sideshows for people to look at.
Where do we go from here? Because right now, We have a deal, we don't have a deal. Politicians are on one hand saying, in fact, members of the court coalition are saying, if this deal is not brought to a stop, they're going to court. But where do we go from here? What is that information that we need so that even when the various politicians from either side of the divide come for a rally, what is that thing that the citizen is saying, oh, you've said that, but wait, hang on, there's 1, 2, 3.
What I would want to encourage is the ministers of agriculture in the 47 counties, because agriculture, remember, is a devolved function, should start exposing the East African Community Protocol, what we call the Custom Union Agreement, to their population. Let the people understand the inside of that protocol. That protocol is not hidden. It's even in the website. So the governors, through their ministers of agriculture, can start indirectly exposing that information to the population. That will allow the national MP, in quote, the senator, to be questioned that you are the house that passed this. How come now you are pretending that you are doing something better for me? So that we shift the debate from noise to facts. The facts is Parliament endorsed and approved the East African Protocol. All MPs, all senators, including the current ones, are aware that we read the East African budget on the same day because of that protocol. There are duties we cannot pass because of that same protocol. The second thing we need to do is to get out from what I would call non-public participation. Let's put the issue on the table. I have been a farmer in this item called sugar. I've been a farmer in this item called maize. For those many years, I don't seem to be growing rich. What should I grow so that the population started demanding what I would call absolute truth on doing what is right for there? The third, which the ordinary population should start doing, is to revisit the existing agricultural laws and policies. Because what we are doing without our understanding is that we domesticated the protocol, but we are still having the old ways of talking to the ordinary farmer. So the ordinary farmer seems to think that there is a battle. But the actual protocol says origin of all goods from East Africa will be described as local. That's what the protocol says.
All right.
So even the sugar we are making noise in the protocol is Kenya
local.
Sugar under the definition of the word local.
I see.
So that's what I'm saying. Let's help Kenyans to indirectly internalize. You only grow rich if you dislocate. Okay, that's why Abraham turned to go very far. So let's start getting our people knowing we have Kenyans growing palm oil in Uganda to reduce the cost of palm oil in this side of the country.
All right.
Our farmers, please, if it's cheaper to grow it out there, let's go and release those rats. Let's conquer other nations. Let's not be so domesticated in local might that our politician is holding us. Remember the East African Protocol, the second phase is political federation. So we have finished with the Union of Customs. We are now going to whether we should have a president for the zone.
For the region,
So our population, especially the youth, please go ahead and take advantage of this animal you are calling importation. Go out, go to your Weso Fund, go to your Youth Fund, go to your Women Fund, start asking the Ministry of Agriculture, we hear you are giving licenses to import 300,000 tons. Can we have a license as Corridor Youth Group called whatever it is? Then the last point which she mentioned, which is very fundamental, and Kenyans need to debate it in a sober way. The fact that I have protected your industry does not mean everybody is gaining. That poor person who buys sugar, if he is losing 30 bob per kilo because of you being protected, we need to calculate for the Kibera person, for the Madare person, that poor person, why are they suffering? They can't educate their children so that I allow you to continue importing.
And for me, that's the issue.
Finally, for the MPs, and this is a Kenyan request, can we demand that the risk, not of the agreement, of the people they are calling sugar barons, can we demand they list them for us?
Okay, all right. And that's it.
And I think this is, and for me, this is a broader story, is that why are we penalizing Uganda? Why are we having a conversation where we want to penalize Uganda and protect Kenya from cheap imports? We should be celebrating that there's cheaper sugar. That should be something that we'll be relishing in, you know. And rather than propping up an industry that we're not looking at the lack of competitiveness, the inefficiencies, the management issues and the mismanagement issues, we keep on giving them money to prop up an industry. And the other issue that he mentioned is that why are we looking at the sugar belt as it can only grow sugar in that belt? There are other ways that we can begin to phase in more productive crops into that part of the country, so that if Uganda is good at producing sugar, let them produce the sugar.
Then we'll import
it.
What we're good at producing.
Yeah, then we figure out what we're good at producing, and let's sell that to Uganda. So we shouldn't make this a battle, you know, we should come together a bit more.
All right, and on that note, we wind up Checkpoint today. Thank you very much, Karithi Murimi and Anzetse Were. You now know where you stand. Do you stand on each side of the political divide, or do you stand on the side of productivity and, of course, affordable goods? We'll get to your feedback in just a moment. But John Alanamu, following the discussion, what's the point?
Interesting discussion that should have happened a long time ago if we are to be able to get our cash crop and subsectors in order. But there's a couple of points that came out of this discussion very salient, and perhaps the first one, dealing with what's happening right now in the political sphere, is that politicians are selling all sorts of lines for Kenyans to buy. A caveat should be entered: buyer beware of the politics that is at play and has been at play for the past number of years with respect to the sugar subsector. Has it helped increase or improve the position of farmers? Has it helped improve the position of consumers? If it hasn't, then let's listen less to the politicians and look more at the facts. And secondly, what if we want protection as a country, as we have asked for over the past 10 to 15 years, as was mentioned, under different kinds of protocols, then why aren't we doing the work? Are we doing the work to make our industries more competitive? Are we improving the infrastructure, the machinery that we use to make our sugar more productive? Why is it that sugar in Malawi, a country that is far less rich than Kenya in terms of the per capita of that country, is able to produce sugar cheaply? Why is it that our neighbor Uganda, who has a worse balance of trade than Kenya, is able to produce sugar cheaply? We should ask ourselves these questions. Finally, again, just to press that point, we ask ourselves, why is Kenyan sugar not able to compete with sugar from other parts of the world? Why is it that we continually ask for these kinds of extensions, yet for year in, year out, we are not able to reimagine our industry and make sure that everybody in the value chain, from farmers to consumers, gets their worth in terms of a shilling that they're spending either in the farm or in the supermarket buying sugar goods from Kenya? We need to be able to look at this debate focused and without the noise that politics sometimes brings, and that is the